Here we have what's known as a conundrum, and I had to look that up. But what it amounts to is that we're trying to figure out how this door goes. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where you can't do anything without doing something else first. So I haven't really been able to see anywhere where there's a specific specification on how the door should go. Obviously, the door's got to swing open and close, and it shouldn't catch in the door opening anywhere. And this particular design of this door, the door overlaps the opening all the way around. So one of the things that you have to consider is in this area, when the door swings open, it's got to be enough of a gap back here so that the door doesn't hit against the body. It's got to be room for that lip of that door because of the design of the hinges to go in and not touch the body. So you've got to start with some kind of a gap here, and I suspect, you know, somewhere around the thickness of this pin punch. Now I just have the door kind of sitting in there. One of the things that you well, you'd like to be able to mount the hinges to the door and then figure out where the door goes and mount the hinges to the post, but it's not really that easy. To be very honest with you, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to take and mount one of these hinges, and as soon as you do that, as soon as you start drilling holes in this wood, you're kind of done, because you can't really say, oops, I need to move the hinge a little bit, I'll just drill another hole. I suppose you could drill a big hole and put a plug in it and start all over again if you want, but man, you sort of hate to do that on new wood. So I'll be very honest with you. I mean, I think we've got to get the gap up here at the top so that the top of the door meets the top of the rear quarter, if that's what you want to call it. Up at the front, the little curve at the very top of the door should just barely sit at the bottom of the scuttle. And of course, we don't have the scuttle on yet. And you know, we're gonna have to just start somewhere. So I've got some indications on the old hinges as to where they were in relation to the bodywork, and I'm really gonna start there. I think, as I said, you want this gap at the back to allow your door to open, and as you go down the bottom and follow to the front, that gap should stay pretty consistent. But I'm not sure you want a gap at the front of the door. You don't want the front of the door to hit the bodywork, but you also don't want a big gap there where you see the inside edge of the door. So that's another deal that you can work on. But the big thing is to get the door even with the top of the sheet metal here, and fitting nicely under the scuttle here, and having enough gap in here so that when the door swings open, this edge of this door doesn't touch that metal. And of course, you really don't know how much gap you need until the hinges are mounted, and then it's too late. So you gotta make a what we call a scientific wild-ass guess. Use the swag theory and put it in there somewhere where it looks right. That's rule number 82. If it looks right, it must be right. So that's what we're going to do. At some point, we're not going to mount the hinge just yet. We'll pull that door out of there and see what it takes to put the front pillar in. See if I can get that temporarily in place. And then we've got some front door latches over on the bench that we dug out that are in pretty bad shape, but we'll see if we can spend some time on them and get them to function a little bit. Well, since we're dealing with a conundrum, as we called it, we went ahead and mounted the hinges because you got to start somewhere. And I think what we've come up with here is we have the original sheet metal, and we went ahead and put this piece in, this rocker brace, and got it to the point where the original sheet metal will overlap it almost all the way around, all the way up to the top. We put this front latch post in temporarily, but the secret here is that we've got our bent over flange that looks like it'll bend over the new wood, and because we're still fastened at the front here, that pretty much dictates where everything's going to be, unless we're going to go ahead and replace all of this, and I'd rather not do that. So the other thing that you have, it's bad enough you have this house of cards over here that's just a bunch of sticks standing up with no reference point, but then you end up with this door that's also more or less a bunch of sticks that are all screwed together and twisted and tweaked, and you know, you really don't know what shape you're going to get. I'm assuming this is the door stop, and I don't know what goes on there. There must be, I thought a bolt went through here, but there must be something there that stops that door from coming open. So there's a little rubber bumper here. I'm gonna have to figure out how that goes, otherwise your door just go right round and tear everything up. But we've got some bolts in the hinges temporarily, and I think we've got to the point, if I back the camera out here so slightly, where no, get this out of the way, where the door will at least close. Now, it doesn't want to stay closed because we don't have the latch in there, and our hinges aren't quite tight. But I think what we've got to do is, there we go, is get that door. We got the sheet metal to fit the wood. Now we've got the door. You can see that the top of the door is just here at that break line where the scuttle goes. Get that door to fit the opening, and when we get all done, let's see if we can move the camera over here a little bit, we'll get the whole thing to fit. If we have to adjust hinges or put shims or whatever, we've got a pretty good fit in here. I think when we get our sheet metal down, it'll butt right up against the top of the door. And as I say, we just got these bolts in here now that really don't put any preload on the hinges, so they're moving around a little bit when we open and close the door. But the door is in the opening, and that's about half the battle. I started doing this, and the hinge plates on the door seemed to be loose, so I tightened up the bolts on them, and that changed everything. So every time you make an adjustment somewhere on this thing, everything else moves. So we're just going to have to get it happy, get it all to fit together. I think we're on the right path. And like I said the other day, we're going to have to work on the door latches next, and see what we have going on there. I think there's some rubber pads that fit in here and in here for the front edge of the door. The sheet metal's off a little bit as far as the openings for those pads, but we can adjust that. And just see if we can get things fitted up. I don't know. My old piece had a relief. I see in the somewhere in the storage they call it a rebate. I don't know what the hell a rebate. A rebate here is when you give something back. So I don't know why they call it a rebate. We call it a relief. But the old piece of wood, let's see if I can figure that out, had a little bit of relief where the latch bolted, and then of course it's real thin on the back, so what you end up here, and they carved it out here, is a point right in here where the thing just breaks in half, because you got all this heavy duty wood here, nice and thick, and right there is the weakest link. It snaps right off. So especially when you drill a hole in it, that doesn't help. So we're going to have to try to work on those latches and inside door handles and see what it takes to mount that. I suppose if you're out too far here, you can recess that and set your latch back in there a little bit. We'll have to see how that looks. So we got some door latches here, and this is the catch. A little hole in there, a little notch, first catch, and then this is the inside release. There's a square there that the outside handle goes in. On this particular one, we've got a broken spring that goes from here to there. I'm sure we could find a little spring somewhere to put on that. But we got kind of lucky here because this one still functions. The little plunger in here is loose and still good. The cover leaves a little bit to be desired. I don't know if we can see if we can just buy some new covers. If you got to buy the whole handle, these door latches seem to be everywhere, so we'll have to see. We have another latch. We haven't cleaned that one up yet. What I see is it looks like they put packers, somebody's put packers or washers in here to adjust the depth of this striker. So we're kind of have to see how that works. We may not, because we have new wood and everything. I don't know if they had to move the holes or why they did that, but we're going to have to start from zero there. This door handle needs a little work. It's pretty well corroded. We're going to have to see if we can, maybe we can pull this pin out here and knock that plunger out of there and get that bore cleaned up and get this thing freed up. But right now it doesn't want to move. So, and the mounting plate here is just all pot metal, so we'll soak it with some lubricant, see if we can loosen everything up and get both of these latches to work. Get a spring on that other one. At least we've got something to go by here, and see what we can see if we can make this stuff work. The other cover isn't much better. They've seen better days. We put a little lubricant down in this one and got the plunger out, and you can see here we've got a little cotter pin. There's an end cap and a spring, and then we have the little latch plunger. It goes down in this bore, and then the handle moves back and forth, so the handle's free. That's a good sign. If we can clean all this up, I think we can make this one work, and maybe all we got to do is get a couple of covers. We'll see. The arms here aren't in real good shape, but we'll see. We'll see what we get. We'll get them to work first, and we can replace them later. That's for sure. But going to take some cleaning. We'll do that next. Playing with our door hinges here a little bit, our door latches a little bit. Got some cleaning solution here. We soaked them in. Obviously we took this one apart. That appears to be for the right door. It was all seized up. We got all the parts out of it and cleaned that bore up a little bit, cleaned the parts up. This one for the left door is functional, but as we said before, this spring on this one is broken. So this latch is pretty well worn in this area right here. I would say that the door was probably sagging a bit and was hitting the top part of this guide and not riding on the bottom, and it's beat up this, over time it's beat this edge up to the point where it's really not very good shape. So I thought, okay, this one's not too spiffy, I'll pop that spring off, put it on the other one, but that's easier said than done. So we might keep our eye open for another one of these right-hand door latch. I mean, these things are around. At a minimum, we'll have to get a spring for the other one, unless we decide to trash this one completely. It really is worn badly in this area, to the point where it's almost not usable. And the other thing you got to be careful of are these little mounting holes for the covers. Some real tiny screws there, and I don't even know what kind of thread goes in there. I'm going to have to find, you know, American thread is probably a 632 or maybe an 832 at the most. So we're going to have to try to figure that out. Get some door latches that are going to work and work properly. If I give up on this latch, I still might try to pop that spring off of there. I just haven't figured out how to do it without killing it. So that's our project for this week. We've got the left-hand door set in place, and the hinges are snugged up a little bit. It swings open and closed all right, and I really need to get in there now and tighten up the wood on that side of the car, all around that door opening, the hinge pillar and the latch pillar, and get that all secure before we really start worrying about where to put these door latches and how to get them to work.